So we're going to look at the process of automating printer installations, and in this case the printer is going to be a direct IP printer. So that's one thing to note. Now you'll notice that I have a lot of code here, but I don't want you to get scared. Here's a simple rundown of the basic code that you'll need. It's 3 parts, and those 3 parts are installing the driver, creating a port, and then installing the printer. But I'm going to show you a bunch of different ways to do that and talk about a bunch of different concepts and things that you need to be worried about and concerned about. So let's jump into it. First, this is like a 1A. I tricked you. This is like 1A, and then installing the printer driver is 1B. Deploying the driver. When you download drivers, they're going to come in lots of different kinds of packages, and you need to open those packages up in order to get to the INF file. So in this case, I'm going to be installing a LaserJet 4200 printer, which is a very common printer that you'll find, and I downloaded it from from HP's website. And you'll see when I run this package, it comes up to this WinZip self-extractor. Now, you can extract these files to a network share if you have a network that's set up where users have access to a common file share, and you can point your driver installation using an UNC path like this. So you would point to the server, the share, the driver folder, and then you could point to the INF file. So when I'm referencing the INF file later in this script, just know that you can make it easy for yourself by putting it on a network share. But sometimes you're going to need to include the driver files themselves. So you can extract the driver files and just provide the raw folder, or you can try to automate the package itself so that you only have to copy one file and then it extracts everything. So let's look at this WinZip self-extractor. Now there's lots of different extracting files or file types. So there's like install shields and WISE installers and different ones. You need to go online and look for the command line switches or the parameters that are part of that system, because this is not part of HP. This is WinZip. So I found online that you can automate WinZip self-extractors by using the parameter auto and then supplying a folder. And when I run this command, you'll see that it did not come up and stop. It simply extracted the files to the location that I pointed to, and that makes it really easy. Another thing to note is that PowerShell doesn't work like Batch, where you can run an exe and it'll wait for that exe to finish before it moves on. If I run this bit of code, you'll see that it extracted, but the green text came up at the same time, and that can cause problems later in your script if it's looking for a file that wasn't fully extracted yet. So using start process and supplying the exe, then putting the parameters in this parameter called argument list, and then this is the important part, supplying the wait parameter will allow you to run pieces of packages or run other packages and have it wait to finish that process before it moves on. So you'll see that it extracted the files and then our green text was displayed. So that's a little bit about deploying the drivers. Like I said, you can extract them to a share and do the driver installations over the network, or you can supply the package as well. And if you want to automate the package, you need to go online and figure out what the automation options are for that specific package. So 1B, installing the driver. That's the first thing you need to do in order to run a printer. You need to install a driver. And there are several different tools that we're going to be using for each of these portions. There's an executable and a DLL called print UI, which lets us do a number of things with printers. There are VB scripts, which come with Windows pre-installed, that lets you do a number of things. And then there's WMI directly, and we can call WMI from PowerShell. So let's look at this print UI thing. If you go online and you look for information about print UI, you'll see several different ways that people are using it. One of the ways is by calling this printui.dll, and it's a DLL file that you can access and add parameters to it, which will let you do different things. So in this case, we're going to be installing a driver using print UI. So if you see people using this run DLL32 printui.dll print UI entry, that's the DLL version. So when I run this, you'll see that it pops up with all of the parameters that you can use and the examples of different things that you can do with it. Now there is an exe file as well, and if I run it, you'll see that the exact same thing pops up. So don't be confused when you see those two different versions. printui.exe and printui.dll do the same thing. They're just different incarnations. One thing to note as well is that when you run printui.exe in PowerShell, you need to have elevated privileges, and that caused some problems when I was trying to put this example together. But you can also use start process, and the reason that we're going through start process here like before is to access the wait parameter. You can use run DLL32. You would simply provide the printui.dll printui entry part in the argument list, not as the place where you would want to provide an exe, and this part will work fine. So what are we doing here? We are using run DLL32 argument list printui.dll printui entry, and then we're simply supplying command line parameters so that we can install a driver. And there's a couple of things that you want to look into. Let's pull up the parameters here. So the main parameter that we need to look at here is the IA, and this is install printer driver using an INF file. Now as we looked before, we extracted our contents of the driver package to the c:\fern desktop driver, and in this folder is an INF file, and we're referencing the INF file here in this -f portion. These other parameters are specific to your system. So my system is a 64-bit version, so I need to put x64, and the type 3 is the version. This is user mode. I haven't ever had to change this. You might need to in your specific situation, but this is what has worked for me. And then we provide the INF file. But you'll notice over here there's this /m, and this is the model. This is a very important part of the automation process, because you're going to need to use this model name exactly as it shows up here in all these different aspects of the script. So how do you find out this string here? That's very, very specific and very important. There's a couple of ways you can do it. One of those ways is by opening the INF file up, and let's see, do I have it up here? Let's look on the desktop. I'm sorry, it's a little messy here. Where is it? Driver. There we go. Okay, so there's an INF file, and you can open it up, and down somewhere in one of the sections you'll see model sections, and you're going to want to select the one that you're trying to install. So in this case, I'm just doing the HP LaserJet 4200 PCL5E. There's a 4200L. There might be more. Down here there's the Vista version, and they're the same names. So you can copy and paste it from here, and when you supply the model in this section and you supply the INF, this print UI will know which packages to install and how to install that driver. You can also install the driver manually by using the add printer wizard. So you just add a printer, you go through the process. I'm sure you've done this before, where it asks you to give it have disk. You just go and see driver, you give it the INF file, you install the printer, and then once you fully install the printer and you've manually installed the driver, you can use a little bit of WMI. So we're going to use get WMI object win32 underscore printer driver, and we're going to pass that to select, and we're going to pull the names. So we can see which drivers that we have installed on our system through here, and this first string that shows up is the same string that you would supply in this model section. So if you want to do that as well, if you go through the INF file and it just looks very confusing and you can't find it, install the printer and then or install the print driver. I guess you would have to install the printer as well, but you know, that's easy, just doing it manually once, and then you can automate it going forward. Using get WMI object Win32 printer driver, select the name, find the one that you were trying to install, copy and paste this into this model section. And I'm gonna go ahead and move on now. So you saw those different methods. If I run this, I guess it'll throw up an error because it's already installed. No, it installed it again. So those bits over there, you can see that it installed successfully. I didn't get any errors. And we can use this, we can do the same thing installing the printer driver using these VBScript files that are provided with Windows. And there's a number of VBScript files. Oh, another thing to mention about drivers is that they must be signed drivers. So if you manually install the printer and you get a little message that pops up that says this driver is not signed, blah 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 blah, then you can't automate installing that driver. You're SOL. So that's an important thing to note. But there's a bunch of different VBScript files that are provided with Windows, and they're provided all the way back to, I think, Windows 2000. I know that they're in Windows XP and above, and they perform different functions. So like print config lets you change the existing printer configurations. There's print driver, which lets you configure drivers. There's printer job monitoring, printer management, printer port management, printer queue management, publish a printer to Active Directory. So if you need to do different things, they are on your system already. And that's what this bit of code up here was for, is to figure out where those VBScript files are, because in Windows XP and I guess the Windows 2000, I'm just assuming you're going to want to check that on your system yourself. They're in the System 32. They're dumped right into System 32. But on Windows Vista and above, they are in System 32 Printing Admin Scripts ENUS. And this is just a switch statement that changes this variable based upon which major version I'm using. So we're using the system environment, OS version major, which pulls back a number based on the version that I'm using. If it comes up as version 5, then I know that it's the XP 2000 family. If it comes up as 6, then I know it's the Vista and above family, and then it changes this variable accordingly. And you'll see down here, I'm using this variable to point to the printdriver.vbs. And if you're not familiar, when you're running VBScript files, you can't just call them from the command line. You have to use the cscript.exe. So I'm just providing that as part of the command line. And when I run this VBScript, you'll see that it displays all of its parameters and examples, much like PrintUI did. And you can do a lot of similar things. PrintUI can do a lot more, but you can do a lot of things with these different VBScript files. So I'm doing something much very similar here. I am adding the driver. I'm using -A to add. I have the model, which is pulled from the INF file, or you can install it manually. I'm giving the version, which in this case you can just provide 3, and that is a telephone. Blown up my spot phone. Okay, so, and in this case I'm providing Windows x64. Now you'll notice that the parameters are a little bit different for each of them, so you need to be specific to the type of method that you're using, and I left out the driver file path. That's one of the parameters here. So you can use PrintUI, you can use the VBS file, but let's say that you want to modify the printer drivers on your system. Like we did before, we used the getWMI object printer driver, and in this case I'm going to delete that driver that we had. So by using where object, I can select that driver specifically by matching it with its name, and it creates this driver object. And you need to make sure that you only have one printer driver in there, because you can't call these methods on multiple driver objects. So when I have driver, I can do something like delete, which is a method, and then you'll notice when I run this again, it's not what I want it to do. Select name, that driver is no longer on my system, so I have to come back up here and do one of these methods. So we'll just run this real quick, reinstall the driver, and if we look for the name again, now it's back on our system. So that was how we can install the drivers. We can modify the drivers a little bit. The next thing we need to do is to create a port, and the port lets us point to the network printer directly, and then we're going to provide it to our printer installation next. So we're using more WMI here, and in this case we're using WMI directly to install the TCPIP printer port, and we're using this WMI type accelerator. We provide the class name that we need to use, which in this case is Win32_TCPIP printer port, and by wrapping it in parentheses we can access the methods specific to this class. And in this case we're going to use the create instant method, and we assign it to this port variable, and when we run this it's going to create an empty printer port. So now we just need to fill in the blanks. It's like coloring. You just got to make sure you color in between the lines. And I have my information filled out here. The important parts are the name and the host address. So this would be the name that you want for this port, and then you would give it the IP address of the printer that you're trying to install. And in these sections down here, I haven't really needed to change anything. This protocol is whether you want raw or I think it's LPR, and 1 is for the raw port number. I've never had to change this. 9100 SNMP enabled. I put false, and you can provide a description. So you might need to change these for your specific site. Excuse me. And you just need to fill in the blanks, and that's it. Ooh, lucky me, I have some water right here. I'm getting parched. So we want to fill in the blanks now. So when I run this bit of code here, it is going to fill all that in. So when we look at our port object again, we have all the necessities filled in there. All we need to do is run this put, and let's take a look. How do we know that the port was installed successfully? Well, first, it won't throw an error back, but we can also look in the registry. And where is that? HKey local machine system control set 00 control all the way down to print monitors, standard TCPIP ports, and then ports, and they'll show up here. I already have another port installed. One thing to note as well, if you want to get rid of a port, don't just go in here, right click, and delete the key. I believe there's references to these things other places, so if you just delete this key, it's going to be a dirty uninstallation. So we want to create this now. We just use the method put, and that's going to put it on our system. So when I run that, I didn't get any errors. I can come over here, hit F5, and now my printer port exists with all the information in there, and that's as simple as that. That's how you create the port. But what if you want to modify the port? Well, much like we did with the printer driver, we can create an object. We use getWMI object, and we provide the Win32 TCPIP printer port class. We filter it by the name of the port that we want to change. So in this case, let's say that I want to change the host address to .30. I'll create this port object, and it exists because we have a printer port named MyPrinterPort. And you would do what you did before. You would just simply assign the property a different property here. So we're going to change the host address, and then we're going to put it much like we did before. If I hit F5, you can see up here the value changes to 30. One thing I do want to note, This is just kind of a easy way of changing it. But if you put the wrong port name, if you want to change it, this is a simple way of doing it. First, you would want to grab the port, and I'm going to create it again over here. So we have, oh, well, I guess it was already there. You'd grab the port, and then you just straight up delete it first, right? So now the wrong port name is off my system, but you still have this port object, and it still has all the previous information there. So now you can go ahead and just change the name. So we change name, and then we hit put. And why would you want to do it that way? Well, if you don't delete it first and you change the name and then create it, you'll have two ports here. You'll have the old one that you didn't want, and then you'll have the new one. And then you have to go back and delete the old one. You'd have to do a separate call, like looking for it like this and then delete it. It's just easier to delete it first because you can keep the data logically in PowerShell, change the name, and then hit put. So that's the WMI method for doing that. You can do it with the VBS script as well, PRN port. Much like the other one before, you have to use the parameters that are specific to this one. So we have add. This is the to turn off the SNMP. The port name, my printer port 2, -H, which is the host name. O, this is the protocol, like in the other one, except in this case, we are putting its name there, so raw, and then the port. So if we run this bit over here and come back to our registry, you'll see that we have, oh, I guess my printer port 2 was already there. Let's try 3. Or let's try 4 because I have fat fingers. I need to run it. So we come in here, and you'll see that we have my printer port 4. Everything is set, much like before. So now we have a driver installed on our system. We can see that the driver is installed. We have a port installed on our system. We can see that the port is installed. Now we just need to install the printer. So there's another printer script that you can use for that. There's the PRN MNNGR VBS, and it's very simple. Use -A to add it, P, which is the printer name, which is what will show up in devices and printers. You provide the model, which is the very specific name that you needed up above, and then you give it the port that you want to associate with that printer. So did I install that? I need well, I can use just my printer port 2. So when we run this VB script, it's going to take a little bit, but it's going to go and install our printer. So we can just sit here and wait for it to, I'm guessing it'll pop up. I might have to hit refresh. Boom. Printer name now on our system. So if I go to printer properties, whenever it decides to show up, this is that's print UI. Where are the properties? Show me the properties. Come on. I can handle properties. Give me the properties. Okay, it's not going to cooperate. And I don't like chopping my videos up, so we're just going to, oh, maybe it's not done. Did I? Now it's done. Okay, you can see this takes a little bit. It takes a little bit. I'm just impatient. That's what it comes down to. You're just not, you're not going to cooperate. Okay, well, safe to say that it is installed. You're just going to have to trust me on this one. It has the correct port. It has the correct driver associated with it. And all we had to do was run this VBS script. Now you can do it using, oh, here we go. Here we have the properties. Okay, so let's go look at ports. You'll see the driver, the model name is here. We have ports, and the one that we selected is the one that it was installed with. If we go to configure port, it's using the raw. It's got the port number. SNMP is disabled. everything is there. So the direct IP printer is successfully installed using that VB script, but we can use WMI directly as well, like we did with the port. So we have the same call up here. We have the accelerator. We're using win32_printer. We have to create an instance. This will create a blank instance of the printer that we want to install. We have to fill in all the information. So we have name, we have the driver name, which is that very specific string. We have device ID, which was not in the other one, but this is a unique name for the printer on your system. You can even disable sharing, so I disabled sharing on here, and giving it that port name. So I need to change it. We'll make this one 4. So once you have all that information filled out, let's take a look at it. There's lots of stuff you can change in here, but I just filled out the necessities. We can put it, I'm going to change the name to my WMI printer 2, so I need to reassign that. We're going to use put, and it's going to do its wonderful little WMI thing. Now, one thing to note as well is that there's a lot of different things that you have to be concerned with when you're doing these automated printer installations. Like, some users may not have permissions to install drivers or modify printers or things like that. It really depends on the way that your network is set up, the way that the permissions on the system are set up. So you always want to test this stuff on a machine that has all the respective permissions and configurations laid out that your users would have, because you don't want to try to deploy something and all of a sudden you find out, oh, we can't install the driver because they don't have access to installing drivers. So if we come down to the printers, there's my WMI printer. Is that what I installed? Is that what I named it? I guess I did. It didn't reassign the name. Oh, the device ID. That's what it shows up as. Is it changed in here somewhere? Okay, so the device ID is the important name in that section. I'm not even sure where the name comes in handy. Making me look bad here. Okay, so device ID, that's what it's going to show up as. Printer name is what it was before. And so that's the WMI method. Now, like we did before with modifying the drivers, modifying the ports, we can do the same things with the printer. We can change the port name. So we're looking at my WMI printer right now. See if it grabs it. So we have my WMI printer. We want to change the port name. In this case, what's my WMI printer using? Ports, it's using 4. So we want it to use 2. We can change that very simply. We have that printer object. We're going to change the port name. We're going to run it. And then we're going to put it. Let's go ahead and check and see what it's using now. Ports. And you'll see now it's using my printer port 2. So you can edit these printers using WMI as well. You can even delete it. I'm going to grab it again. I'm going to run delete. And you'll see that it's no longer on our system. You can even do stuff like change the default printer. And so, I mean, that's pretty much it. That that is the basics. So we'll come back to the simplified version. What you need to do is you need to install the driver on the system. You need to create a port that points to the driver. And then you need to install the printer itself. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do each of those things. You can use print UI. There's the EXE and the DLL. You can use direct WMI, which PowerShell lets you interface with very easily. Or you can use these VBS files that are provided with Windows to help you automate the process. And as I said before, there's lots of things that you need to check on your network first before you try to go and push this out, whether you're doing it through PSExec or you're doing it through SECM or you're doing it through just plopping it in a user's startup folder. You need to worry about permissions. You need to worry about what policies are on your system. But that's the gist of it. And once you have all that stuff figured out, you just can reduce all of this crazy code to something much more simple and install printers automatically on your system if they're direct IP printers. And that's it. Thanks for watching.